Higher prices are coming in May if Trump doesn't roll back the tariffs. This is what Ford released in an unofficial statement recently, basically saying they're going to raise prices on consumers if the US president doesn't get rid of the tariffs. Now, is this a bluff? Because a few months back, before the tariffs rolled in, Ford was threatening the same thing. And when the tariffs came around, not only did they not raise prices, they announced employee pricing. So will they go through with it this time? Well, I'll let you know my thoughts on this in a little bit. But first, let's get into this article titled, Ford Tells Dealers Prices Could Go Up in June If Trump's Tariffs Remain. This is in CNN Business. So it says, Ford is warning its dealers that tariffs will likely raise prices in the coming months, the latest impact the import taxes will have on Americans' finances. President Donald Trump's 25% tariffs on all imported cars went into effect. In a memo Ford dealers first reported by Automotive News, the automaker told dealers that the cost of those tariffs could be passed down on some vehicle deliveries starting in June, since certain tariffs are likely to remain in place for at least some time. Now, the interesting thing with Ford is, like I said before these tariffs came in, they warned against the tariffs. When the tariffs eventually came around, they announced employee pricing. And at that time, CEO Jim Farley came in support of the tariffs. Now they've done a full 360 and are warning against the tariffs. They're flip-flopping on the tariffs more than the president is. So are they going to actually stick to this threat? Or when May comes around, are they going to say, well, you know what? We'll extend for another month and we'll announce friends and family pricing just so we can help out consumers before we really raise prices in a month's time. Is that what they're going to do, or are they going to actually stick with that increase in prices? Who knows, but we'll find out. Anyways, the article goes on to say, we will not increase MSRPs for any vehicle currently in inventory. However, in the absence of material changes to the tariff policy as articulated to date, we anticipate the need to make vehicle pricing adjustments in the future, which is expected to happen with May production. Basically, this is a public threat to the president. From a PR standpoint, this is pretty risky for a corporation to do something like this, but my guess is this really isn't for the president. I don't think they're going to sway the president to change his mind based off of this memo. What this seems to me like, it's something intended for consumers, basically trying to lure customers who are sort of on the fence with buying a vehicle right now to try to jump in and buy one while they're still in pre-tariff pricing. Even though, like I said, there's not going to be any post-tariff pricing unless there is a significant reduction in inventory, which I don't think is going to happen, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, the article then goes and talks about the employee pricing that it announced on April the 3rd and saying that this was a gesture of goodwill to its consumers. Now, here's the thing. The employee pricing is just BS. You could have gotten better deals before the employee discount nonsense. And the reason that they're doing this is because they want to get rid of all the excess inventory on their lots. Ford has tons and tons of F-150 trucks on dealership lots, many of them from previous year, and they can't get rid of them. And these dealerships are drowning in interest payments that they are paying on the floor plans for these vehicles. So Ford is trying to do whatever they can to clear out this inventory. And this is why I say that the threat of increased prices is a bluff. Anyways, the rest of the article then talks about who sets prices. And this is an important point because they go back and forth a little bit talking about whether it's the automakers that are setting the final sticker price or the car dealerships. But in reality, I don't think it's the automakers, the dealerships, or even the customers. I think ultimately it goes down to the banks. The banks are the ones that approve on the loans for these new vehicles. Now, if the consumers are in a situation where their credit score doesn't allow them to purchase a lot of these vehicles, well, they're just not going to buy them. At the end of the day, a lot of these automakers know that a consumer can want to buy a vehicle. A consumer can try to stretch their budget to get into a vehicle. But if the bank doesn't approve for the new loan on that vehicle, whatever ridiculous amount it is and whatever ridiculous term it's on, then the consumer is just not going to get into that vehicle. It's as simple as that. And there's an important quote in this article that talks about this whole situation because they say, we do think supply is going to be restricted. And this is talking about if these tariffs go through and the automakers have to raise prices, that means there's going to be reduced sales, which means they're going to have to restrict production. And so they're trying to say that, okay, this is similar to what happened in the pandemic times. But they note a very important difference. In this quote right here, it says, but the most important difference between what happened in 2021 is demand won't be as juiced. people are not going to get checks from the government like they did during the pandemic times. In fact, you're going to have a lot of people who are laid off, a lot of people who are struggling with the cost of living. So for a lot of people, these cars are just going to be out of the question. And because they don't have the finances to make it work, the banks are not going to approve these loans, and sales are going to plummet unless these automakers are willing to eat the cost of the tariffs, or at least a substantial chunk of the cost of the tariffs. Anyways, that's my thoughts on it. Links to the article are in the description below. Let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. And as always, if you enjoyed this, make sure to click like and subscribe. See you in the next one.